thanks for watching. Real quick, Merkabah Scholar Society members, make sure you guys check the website, check your email. Updated calendar for February is out. Also for the entire March, the calendar is done. Make sure you guys check your email for that. Also for the last meeting video, it's on Podia. And also new course material for the new book also is on Podia. You guys see the PDF. So you'll get into that. You'll see that when you see the calendar. So make sure you guys check that. Also, link is in the description for anybody still trying to join. Also for consultations will be extended into next month. I'm probably going to be traveling, but I'll still do some consultations in March. So make sure you guys go ahead and take advantage of that now while I'm still doing consultations. All links are in the description. All right, so let's get into this video. So now, if you haven't seen my last couple of videos I put out a video on the biblical manuscripts, also on the Tel Dan Stela and the Merkabah Stela. So make sure you guys check out those last two videos. They are, a bunch of information in there, and a lot of people had questions pertaining to these things. Now, the biggest feedback I got from those videos is, what are these people going off? There's no way in the world we could have biblical religion for thousands of years and we don't have any concrete proof. And yes, you will be correct in saying that. And that's exactly, our point. This is what we talk about. There is absolutely no concrete proof to back up the claims of the Bible. There is evidence, but there is no proven evidence. There's just evidence leading to what people believe is, claims, or let's just say proof for the Bible. But none of these evidences and claims have held up to scrutiny, have held up to, the bearing of empirical research, meaning they have not gone through the full gauntlet of empirical research and been proven true through the scientific community. So this stuff is not proof. It's not truth. It's not proven. It never has been. Also, again, as I broke down in the manuscript videos, this is what we're accepting, right? So this is what you have. Now, when you shroud all that with churches, unbelievable churches, beautiful buildings, and just grown ass people going crazy and being immersed in the belief of this Jesus and the Bible and everything like that. When you grow up seeing that as a kid, that's called indoctrination. And when you see your parents and grown people across the world doing this, it sucks you into this, it must be true ideology, right? Because there's movies. Rich and famous people go to church. We're talking about God everywhere. So it must be true. And you get sucked into this world that you don't really understand has been, made for you to adopt. And when you go do the actual research and look at this stuff, you're going to find what I've been showing you. There's absolutely no truth to it. It's just belief that you must have in these things as being true. So now this is why, biblical religion, the Bible, church is all based on faith. You have to have faith to believe in this stuff, because once you start asking these questions and looking, your faith will waver. You won't have that kind of faith and belief in it once you understand what's going on. So, me pointing out what's taking place with the biblical manuscripts and that history is something a lot of people need to understand. We do not have the original manuscripts for the Bible. We just don't have them. We never had them, and we have no proof that they ever existed, except for the fact that we have these copies of copies. Now, you have to ask yourself, why is this the same way with these biblical manuscripts? We talk about, the Old Testament. Let's talk about the Pentateuch, the Torah, 5 books of Moses. So you have to look at that. Nothing. You find absolutely nothing but stories. But we can go into the ancient world. We can go into ancient Egypt. We can find carvings. We can find statues. We can find this stuff in ancient Samaria. We can find it in ancient Greece, ancient Rome. We find things pertaining to these people that prove their existence. We can go down in South America as well, find stuff in all kinds of ancient civilizations across the world pertaining to every people who have been proven to exist. What you expect to find to prove the civilization of a people existed. Now, for us, you find the people in Africa. You find the people in China. You find the people in ancient Egypt because they buried them. And every civilization did the same thing where they buried these people. We don't find no bodies of any of the biblical Israelites. We don't find none of the bodies of the biblical prophets. We don't have them. Now, they could tell you where they think they was buried or where they think the bodies are, but we have not seen these bodies. We have no proof. And even if you dug up one of these bodies, whose bloodline or blood are you going to test it against to figure out if it goes back to a biblical character. This is what you have to understand. This is what you have to think about when you're talking about this stuff. Now, and again, if you're a person of faith, you're a man or woman of faith, and this is what you choose to accept, then that's what you accept. And that's what us as grown-ups have to respect. It's just, again, when you cross into the line of fact, truth, this is what you're faced with. So, you can't push biblical religion onto people. You can't condemn somebody to hell because of what you think and what you believe in your faith. You can't tell a person that they're wrong in their thoughts and what they believe in based on your faith or what you think is true. Because everybody's truth is not the same. But when we come to, that's why we have courts, right? When we come to a court, when we come to an agreement on something, you have to bring things to the table that both sides can agree. And since this is an argument that's not going to be held by two people, there's a huge side and another huge side. How are we going to come together on this? And this is why we have courts. This is why we have things like proof, truth, facts, and again, biblical religion has a lot of evidence, but none of it is concrete evidence, right? So this is what you're going to be faced with. Now, you guys have seen all the so-called artifacts. Now, I wanted to really get into the Merkabah stela and the Tel Dan stela. And there's so many other, artifacts that they found, but it's the same thing. I can go through all of them, every single one of them. The story will be exactly the same. And you're going to see this where one, either a fragment or shard that they found is scraped up. You can't read everything, right? It's something that looked like a 10-year-old made it, or something to where with the Tel Dan stela, somebody clearly chiseled what's there in there. It's not complete. And then you have fragments and everything that's pertaining to the manuscripts. There's so much. Why is everything so suspect and scholars can't agree on this stuff? But we can go to another known civilization where we could find bodies, we could find people, we could find artifacts, many of them, and just everybody is, nonstop in agreement on these people existing because we can look around and see the people. Right. So the thing is with Judaism and having these people being basically unknown, then there is no way of us really knowing. And the Bible is not clear. And this is by design on what these people look like. So we have all the hints, the so-called hints in the Bible about the identity of these people. But if these people were black face, African people, they should have been spoken of that way within the book, right? If there is a diversity of people that we see going all the way back to ancient Egypt, so the ancient Egyptians even depicted diversity, how is that not in the Bible, right? When there's supposedly diverse people, that's one of the biggest things that you would think would need to be explained is the diversity of people, the colors. What color was Jesus? What color was Moses? Who did he resemble? Clearly, what did these people look like? So when I'm asked these questions, these are the things that I really get into and I try to explain to people because, for years now, so many people in my family, a lot of my friends, a lot of people come to me and say, hey, this person has questions. Can you talk to this person? Or this person wants to debate you, or this person saw your video, or what have you. It's been happening for years. It's how it goes. And I'm so used to it now. And then as I tell you guys, when you have knowledge and you can explain stuff, it becomes a lot more easy for you to talk to people because you'll find with most Christians and religious people, they have the same questions. They say the same exact things. They repeat the same shit all the time. So I have a real easy answer for a lot of these questions. And this is some of the things I talk about. Now, again, me just believing that people was actually doing research because I felt like, well, damn, if y'all so hype and crying and moaning about Jesus and on your knees and praying and all that, you would think people would do actual research on, on Jesus. And they have not. They haven't looked into the manuscripts. They don't know the history. I've spoken to preachers, pastors, priests, so many people over the years that never even heard of the Septuagint, never even heard of any of the manuscripts. The people who really believe that there is a original Bible in Rome and in the Vatican. Oh, the Vatican is holding the original Bible. But we literally put together the Bible from fragments. And why did it take hundreds of years to do so? You understand? So this is one of the reasons for the manuscript video, because you have to look at that and look at the fact of, everything that happened around that time and that we don't have any of the originals. And then just all of a sudden into existence, we have these fragments of manuscripts, not the full manuscript. So if we have fragments of manuscripts, how did we end up with a full manuscript at some point? And we only have fragments, right? P52, right? And we only have a fragment of, the letters of Paul. How do we end up with a whole letters of Paul later on, right? So again, you have to think about this. We only have the Raelis Papyrus, right? How did we end up with a whole manuscript later on? In other words, how did they go from a manuscript dated to the 2nd century that's in a fragment to an entire manuscript years later, right? So clearly, if that is the oldest manuscript that we have, copy that we have, which is a fragment, how do we end up with a whole entire manuscript? And they want you to believe that, that at one time the full manuscript existed and they copied from that manuscript and made those copies and the copies. Common sense would tell you that's how it worked out, right? But that's convenient for the story. But you would think that we would have something very close to the original instead of just a fragment, which is really convenient for the lie, right? Because having just a fragment, we don't really know what was in the original, do we? We just know that it exists. And it'll give some people who are not wise enough to understand the lie, this understanding that it exists, is there. So it had to be there. So these other manuscripts have to be correct. So why wasn't the same care taken in preserving the fragment as preserving the entire manuscript? You would think if something was there that was so important for you to make multiple copies of as a scribe or whoever was in charge of it, that it would have been protected, right? So it's just something that if we're holding on to this gospel and the word of God, you would think that every civilization around that time would have been condemned by God for having those manuscripts destroyed. But such a thing didn't happen, did it? So it's something to think about and just be really critical and get out of the whole spooky Holy Spiritness of belief and faith and just use critical thinking and just think for a second. How is it that so much time passed between the manuscripts and we don't have not one full copy? Only a shard, a fragment, and then all of these copies later on, right? It's just something to think about. And then we don't get the compiling of these manuscripts until, what we know as the Bible until much later on. So again, I took you guys through that journey. If you haven't seen the video, make sure you guys watch that video. It is important for anybody who has these type of questions pertaining to how do we get our Bible and what are we basing all this on? And that was the biggest thing for me. What are we basing this on? And then when I went back and seen that we're basing it on these biblical manuscripts, okay, then there must be something to these manuscripts. So let's look into it. And when you look into the history of it and you see there's nothing, it's just the manuscript. And then people want you to believe that the manuscripts prove the biblical history. Huh? You guys are talking to these apologists and listening to these guys, and they're telling you a fragment of a manuscript and copies of copies of copies of copies of copies of manuscripts is proof that Moses parted the Red Sea. Jesus walked on water, turned water into wine, right? Flaming fire chariots, Samson with strength, leviathans, and all kinds of magical elves and beings existed because we have these old ass manuscripts that say so, right? Elijah was fucking Goku. Elisha was fucking Vegeta. Powers, doing all kinds of crazy things because the manuscript paper that we have, that's a copy of a copy of a copy, that is full of errors and mistakes, told us so, right? So this is what you have to go on. There is absolutely nothing, not one artifact that supports any type of truth in biblical religion. There is no truth in it. That's why it requires faith. And we're going to get off of religion for a while. I just wanted to put these videos up since, I've been challenged so much in the recent months based on the videos I put out. And, a lot of people haven't seen a lot of my older videos. And again, they don't take the time to watch the entire video. So a lot of questions people have, again, are answered in my older videos. But now a lot of people are starting to pay attention. I'm getting a lot more emails. A lot more people are paying attention because of, the whole debate sparked up again. And it's good. It's good for, conscious movement. It's good for just regular education, which I love to do. And it's good for people's psyche to understand that you will not burn in hell for all eternity because you had an impure thought, because you had sex before you got married, because that means all of us is going to fucking hell, because it's like a rite of passage as a man, as a person, right? That is your human urge to go out and be you. And according to your Bible, you're going to fuck to hell because you were on Instagram. You're going to hell. A lot of people don't realize this. When you jump on YouTube, you jump on Instagram and social media, you are sinning, and you're knowingly sinning. And you can interpret Hebrews 10:26 however you want it, but it's saying clearly, and I only look at the Bible as clearly as what it's saying. Of course, there's esoteric occult meanings behind it. But if you're a Christian and taking it on the surface, it's telling you that if you know you're sinning and you still sin, then the sacrifice for sins no longer remains. I don't know you can read what it says here. But a lot of people have questions and they want to condemn. You guys, I talk about this a lot. I get a lot of emails, man. I get a lot of emails and messages. You're going to hell. You're a Satan. Oh, you're going to burn in a hellfire. So many people cuss me out. It's just ridiculous. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of you guys' emails get lost, because it's like I got to go through 100 Christians cussing me out to get to a relevant email. So it's one of the reasons why I created Merkabah Scholar Society, so we can talk about this type of stuff. But for the people who have the questions, and hopefully you guys saw the videos. I answered a lot of the questions in that video. But again, I want you to go and look at all the information on your own. Go read about the stelas. Go read about the artifacts that's been found. It's a lot of them. And be critical in your research. Look at the criticisms of these documents, of these fragments, of these so-called artifacts.